Hey, what's up, Summit? All right, so today we're going to be doing a Q&A, and if we have some time, I'm going to open it up to the audience. But Ves here is in charge of a bunch of the human resources in our company. He had a bunch of questions. So we're going to go into this, and it's going to be a little bit about business, a little bit about things that are not typical, kind of like how we're expanding outside of just the dating niche into all these other things. I thought it'd be kind of cool to go behind the scenes of what we do in terms of managing real social dynamics. And then we're going to bring up the panel and have all the RSD instructors on stage here. So let's get started. So,
cool. Hey, what's up, guys? So we'll kind of dive right into it. And I know many guys who are not CEOs or owners of companies think essentially all CEOs or all owners of companies do the same tasks and the same things. I want to ask you, how are you different from other CEOs you've met?
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things that is different about me and the entrepreneurs and most of the entrepreneur groups that I'm in, because I've been in a lot of different clubs in terms of business and networking, is that our culture, in terms of real social dynamics corporate culture, is more like a fraternity, like a brotherhood than it is a typical business. If you look at how we interact with each other, we're going to the bars and clubs and picking up girls. We're sharing stories. Yet at the same time, the business executives that are the RSD instructors, they kind of go behind the scenes and they manage their own teams, just like their own, they're kind of like CEOs of their own little brand and their own little subculture. And so what I do is I kind of manage them. I remember I was in business school at USC, and a guy created a gym called the LA Boxing Gym. And he said the reason why he's able to manage all these boxers and their brands and the managers is because he was a fighter himself. So because I was in the field and I was actually actively going out to the bars and clubs, picking up girls, I could relate to a lot of these guys, the drama, their travel schedule. I myself went to 270 cities in 70 countries. I used to crash in couches. I used to do all the hard stuff that people had to do. RSD instructors now, they don't have to do that. They have a massive team. They have a team of video production guys. Sometimes they'll have marketing and sales and all sorts of other guys traveling around with them. But now that I've done that, I could kind of relate to the traveling, the challenges, the demands they have to go through. So whereas some of the things that are unique to us, that are kind of unique to pretty much any other business, is the fact that our instructors used to get lonely when they're on the road. So we used to have a volunteer system where pretty much anyone in this audience could volunteer to host an RSD instructor. And a lot of the guys who have really awesome cribs, like they might have a nice house or what have you, they'll volunteer, they'll reach out to our guy Hugh, who's in this room right now, and say, hey, I want to be a volunteer, I'd like to help out. And these are pretty much every job in this company is a job that I've done myself personally. And the only job that I haven't personally done is actually we've gone to court and represented this company, and I'm resolving that soon because I'm now studying law.
Nice. So I also noticed that just because you've started from that kind of a beginning where you had to actually hustle and grind from the very start, and a lot of the instructors haven't necessarily had to go through that phase, they also look to you for a lot of these questions and a lot of these things you've gone through. So I also noticed you going over advice and everything like that for them as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, your question is about what kind of advice I give to instructors.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I like to do is, because there's different leadership styles. Some is you just delegate everything. And I think that works. Other people are dictators. And I know that even Gary Vee, who's really strong into delegating, he's dictatorial about corporate culture. And that's something that Owen also is very hardcore dictatorial about as well. But in terms of like what I do, I like to try to lead by example by most of what I do. That's why if it's something that I wouldn't have done or I haven't done myself, I wouldn't delegate to somebody else.
Got it. So something along the lines of how you manage your business and your own personal schedule. Since we've worked a lot together on different things in the company, I noticed whenever you have something in your mind, you execute immediately. There's no procrastination with you. So how did you kind of cultivate that habit?
Speed of execution is definitely the key to success. I know that field experience is also king in terms of not just dating and pickup, but actually what we do. So when there's something that I don't know is going to work, if I haven't tried it before, I haven't got those reference experience, I'll still view it like a social experimentation, and I'll just try it to see what happens first, right away, right immediately. The only thing I haven't done in terms of like super fast execution was when Joyengate happened and we had this massive PR scandal, and basically we had a global crisis and we had to consult pretty much the most powerful PR people. So basically Lisa, who's in charge of our human resources department, flew out with Tyler, me, Joy, and we went from PR agency to agency to agency and met with attorneys, everyone from DC and to New York. We even flew to Detroit to meet up with Eminem's publicists. And we hired these guys to get a game plan, because this is something that I've never done before. And I don't like acting fast unless I've actually done it before or actually kind of feel like I've gotten the results. And one of the things that got me early on was I grew up my whole life hearing my father and my mother saying that I was like the jack of all trades. And I don't believe that. I believe that I've mastered a few things really well, but I've tried everything so I could understand what people are doing. That way, if people are doing things way worse than what I'm doing, and I'm not even focusing on it full time, I know that it's something that they could do better. In terms of like the advice, I've given instructors, I think a lot of it has to do with the stuff that relates to like logistics, not necessarily in terms of like the pickup advice, because that's more Tyler's realm. So Tyler is kind of the guy that everyone will go to in terms of managing their brand, having this vision, having the mission. And I feel like a lot of my job is just kind of supporting that, making that happen, because I have that formal education in terms of business. I have a massive network in terms of business and a lot of resources. And so I basically am here to kind of like fund that. Tyler kind of will guide all the instructors hand by hand. In terms of advice, a lot of my advice will be mostly around the business administration, in terms of like the staff, in terms of what they could do better, and from what I've done personally. I do advise the instructors in terms of what they could do in terms of their own administrations, because now we're in a situation where instructors are building their own marketing and building their own brand. Some of them are even building their own sales technology teams. I know that Max, for example, has his own IT guy, his sales guy, video production guys, and the teams, and managing them, structuring the compensation structures, the process, implementing them. And those are the kind of things I'll advise them on. We're also advising them about how to build international corporations and the subsidiaries and a lot of what we call corporate governance. So a lot of what I will do will be managing kind of like these really unusual business processes and systems, or the communication that you have to do for that. But the thing is, because our culture is so much like a brotherhood and a fraternity as opposed to a typical business, a lot of it is just the guys hanging out with our instructors, hitting the field, and that bond of being wingman to these guys kind of like makes it so you have that trust. Because if you don't have that respect and that open, honest, hardcore, direct relationship that you could have it without hurting your emotional bank account, you can't get anywhere.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, as you guys can tell, it's still a lot of work and a lot of hustling. But specifically, a question I wanted to ask you is, when you started the company, obviously it's essentially hustling all the time. At what point did that change in terms of you being able to afford more time for yourself?
It took about 5 years before I actually had time to actually, have a lot of social life and what have you. I know that the first couple of years was pretty hardcore, because Tyler and I, after the first 3 years, were literally going out every night of the week. At the same time, going out every night of the week, doing this like 1,000-day challenge, picking up girls, but during the day, building the business. So I had many, many nights where I wouldn't even take off my shoes to go to bed. I would just lie down, get back on the computer, make phone calls, and try to go out in the field to try to get some sense of happiness. But it was still pretty hardcore. There's many times where the struggle was so tough that Tyler and I would want to quit because it was so overbearing. But we didn't, because we wanted to also make sure that the vision and the mission of Tyler was still hitting forward, which is he wants to impact as many lives as possible in a really powerful way. And I wanted to have a global company that was really hitting as many people as possible. And so those two kind of things kind of collided. And only by going out into the field and developing as much content as we have are we able to build this company. Because if you look at pretty much every company out there, they're all small companies now. There used to be a few competitors, but now they're gone. We're pretty much the only one in this industry now that's doing anything significant. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we go out in the field so much and innovate so much. Our boys are literally releasing YouTube videos every week, if not multiple times a week. And I myself, I'm not even in the field in the bars and clubs. I'm still releasing videos on my YouTube channel twice a week. But our guys will have competitors come up to us and they'll say, your free content is better than our paid content. And other people will come to join us from large corporations, and they'll take over marketing or some other aspect of our business. And they'll say, it's amazing because I've worked in large organizations doing mass amounts of revenue. And they've spent so much money on marketing, where your marketing budget in terms of what you spend is mostly just camera equipment. It's not like buying ads. And their marketing is so far ahead of their content development. They might take like a year to develop a product. We're releasing products every month, and we could do it with ease, and we have a lineup and backlogs of products we can release because our guys are in the field, and our paid content is truly amazing. It's not just awesome videos, it's also a tribe. Seth Godin wrote a book called Tribes, where he talked about how we build a movement. And yesterday I was interviewing a guy named Larry Benet, who's probably the most connected guy on the planet, other than this guy named Elliot, who created this group called the Summit Series, which is the more badass, more private, more exclusive version of TED, like the next generation of it. And this guy was asking me about how you were able to build a movement. A lot of that was through Tyler's vision, because he's the one who studied the creation of tribes and the creation of awesome content. I think a lot of it has to do, though, with the fact that we're able to create content that's from the field, stuff that's very unique to what we do that other people can't create. And that's what really captivates people.
Yeah, and actually along the same lines, a lot of people do want to know about our marketing, but I guess, did you ever think it was going to get to a point where RSD has this huge global outreach with the limited amount of marketing and money we spend on marketing?
Yeah, just to put things in perspective here, for the last several years, like a decade or more, we were spending less than $50, definitely less than $1,000, but many times less than $50 a month in terms of marketing. And the reason why is because it's mostly word of mouth. We were able to touch people, and then those people would go home, show off their fancy skill sets to their friends, and they would get their friends involved. And I thought that was really awesome, and that's how we wanted to build this company. It was really just mostly word of mouth. Sometimes people were interested in having us go to their seminars. And as a result of going to those seminars, we'd also get a lot of people. But most of it was from the generation that we had of free content. We had RSD Nation, we had other discussion boards, we had forums, we had our YouTube channels, and the social media that grew. When we first created this company, it was mostly just to fund Owen and I to be able to travel and not stop picking up girls. And Owen told me that it took him about like 3 to 5 years before he took the business part seriously. And the reason why is because he was really just interested in pickup, and anything relating to business, I could relate to this back then, was really just something that was taking time away from us picking up girls, hitting the field. And it's not like that anymore. Now we're trying to really spread a message and make it a more holistic message. We've always been about the concept, though, of not just dating advice, but also identity level change and self-actualization. That's the slogan you'll see at the top of the RSD Nation forums or on top of rsdnation.com. And the reason why we call ourselves Real Social Dynamics in the very beginning is because we knew from the very beginning that a lot of the curriculum that Tyler was teaching and teaching our instructors to teach was something that was developed based upon the premise that what we're learning changes your entire identity, because in order to get that success with women, you have to become a better version of who you are and be able to convey that quickly and fast. I knew from the very beginning that this was something that was going to impact a lot of people. As soon as we moved into Project Hollywood Mansion a couple years after we started doing business, it was something that I knew that was going to hit fast. I mean, we moved into Project Hollywood Mansion like a few months after we started teaching this one guy on programs, but we had this business plan, this idea of what we were going to do very early on. I didn't know it was going to become like a global company like it is now, where we have tons of people working for us around the world in all these different countries and growing. But I do know that just the belief I had in the people, like Tyler and the rest of the instructors that are working with us now, I knew that they were going to be able to make it work and make it work in a really big way.
And I mean, I guess that's one of the surprises you did. I guess nobody really knew it was going to have this huge global outreach without the money necessary for, a huge marketing campaign. But over the years, has anything else surprised you in a huge way, whether it's any adversity you faced or just the reaction from your clients or anything like that?
Well, the biggest challenges that we faced, the biggest one I think we faced was when the recession hit 2008, which is ironically the year that we made the Inc. magazine list for the fastest growing companies. So people were looking at us and they're like, wow, this is like the 86th fastest growing company, that's a private company created in California. It was like one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And we were looking at that at the same time. The recession hit us hard. The same year that we were in this magazine, we were on what I call the world's largest spam list, because pretty much every bank or everyone starts giving you free stuff. We were hit by the recession and we were down several $100,000 on my credit card, because I had the Amex Black Card, which had no limit. And as a result, we had to dramatically change our business, because it didn't hit just America, it hit pretty much every country in some way. And back then we were based on the premise that most people would fly to LA or fly to our instructors, fly to San Francisco, fly to New York. And we were in, I think, 10 countries at the time, and not in a major way. Now we had to remodel the entire company. So what I did is I told Tyler, after ripping out a map at the back of an airline magazine, I said, what I'd like to do is give us a more global focus. People are not flying to us. We'll fly to them, make it more affordable. Take the risk. And what I'll do is I'll fly to every city on this map that has a population over 500,000. I put up every single city that was on this map and just put up a date next to it. And during a 6-month tour, I flew to 270 cities in 70 countries, and I did what is now known as the RSD free tour. Back then when I was doing it, it was a 4-hour event where I sent the guys into the field for an hour and a half in the middle of it. No one expected to hit the field, and we'd even have some guys be secretly video recorded, and I showed some of that videos in my actual event. And some of the people in this audience might have gone to that event. Who here actually went to one of my RSD free tours from back in the day? Awesome. Which city was that? DC, cool. So basically now the free tour is an event where we have different RSD instructors and they give seminar and they'll show some of their in-field video footage. But back then, there wasn't this RSD free tour. It was more of an event that I did kind of like just to fight the recession, because by doing that, we were able to captivate 20% of the audience in the room to sign up for our live programs, live events, and 5% of those people ended up working for us because I was on a massive hiring spree, hiring people at every free tour I went to, literally. And I might be in 3 free tours in the same city. One day I was in London in the morning doing an event. In the afternoon I was in Dublin, and in the evening I was in Casablanca. I'd also do driving tours, and I'd have to do a driving tour where I drove from the West Coast to the East Coast and back within 30 days. Or I did a 21 country train tour. I have to go back because after 30 days I have to fly back to Los Angeles to a board of directors meeting with Tower to let them know a status update of our financials, or key performance indicators, tracking the staff and the metrics. And when I was traveling, I'd have usually volunteers or interns drive me around or help me out. But back then, it was pretty hardcore. Like I literally spent less than $3,000 a month traveling for those 6 months, every single month, because I was crashing on couches. And sometimes I wouldn't even have a crash pad. I'd go to the seminar, and at the end of the seminar, I said, if you guys like me and you like my event, raise your hand if you have a place that could crash tonight. And I actually did that. Now our instructors will live in Airbnbs all year, or they might be on VRBO, or they'll be in a nice hotel traveling from city to city. But that's how we basically did it from the very beginning. It was pretty hardcore. That was probably the biggest thing that we faced.
Yeah, so in terms of, obviously the company is releasing products all the time now. There's a lot of big things in the way. What are you most excited about for the future of RSD?
I think that every year there's like this new vision or mission that Tyra comes up with. I remember 2-3 years ago, Tyra's mission was we were going to upgrade our video camera equipment from these $500 or $1,000 little cameras to literally cinema cameras and DSLRs that cost $5,000 plus a $5,000 to $10,000 lens plus all this other stuff. And we're like, okay, well, we could do that. And we have to grow our company a little bit to afford that. Then his next goal, the following year, is I want to have 3 to 5 men of camera crew and other assistants traveling with every instructor. So like, wow, that's a huge thing, because if you look at our core team, there's about 10 guys that are traveling around as instructors. And I think 8 of them are like the boot camp instructors. And we have to get like 3 to 5 camera guys. That's a lot of payroll. So we had to grow our company quite a bit. Then the next goal we had was to create a situation where we have an office, a place where he could do video production. So we started getting mansions in the Hollywood Hills that we could use as offices. And these are very, very expensive. These are like literally the largest house in the Hollywood Hills, but they're great for video production, housing our instructors and staff. And also it's a place where he could store in giant safes all the video footage he has in field. Now this year, his goal is to create a situation where we have chief level executives with him in Los Angeles, growing the company, managing his operations, and then helping lead the global infrastructure we have, as opposed to right now, where a lot of people like yourself are remote. We want more and more of these people to be based in cities and working more in our live programs. So you have a lot less time being remote, a lot more time working in main cities like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, where we have our core staff. And a lot of that change is really important to us, because in order to grow, the efficiencies and effectiveness have to be managed, and a lot of our operations are changing. Owen's goal, his overall arching vision, is to change us into a company that is like a $10 million company into a $200 million company in 25 years. And a lot of that has to be not just in terms of dating relationships, but health and fitness, business and overall wealth, and also the higher purpose and identity level change aspects. And these are things that you've seen even here at Summit, where we brought some of those guys that we trust in those niches, in those markets here. And so Owen's going to always be involved with the dating relationships aspects. But as somebody who just needs to have more time in front of the camera, someone who knows a lot about this stuff, that's what his goal is. So he has more time to be in front of the camera, less time managing the business. And taking a lot of that time out of my hands, I'm trying to get more also in terms of content development as well. You can see that on my YouTube channel. I've been creating programs and products like the RSD Founders Club, and I'm doing a lot more in the future in terms of mentorship and business. So I need to actually, in order to afford the convenience of doing that, because a lot of this is a lot of fun. Tyler and I love doing this kind of stuff. That's why we do it. We have to have the business teams in place that can manage this. So if you look at our company now, we have many people that have MBAs. We also have many people that have had chief level positions in other organizations, and we're taking them from these larger companies and bringing them to our own. And that's a lot of restructuring. And a lot of it is building a lot of subsidiaries, which are mini companies that are kind of owned by corporate, and building these companies all over the world and then having the teams in place so that they're managed properly. Kind of like a franchise, but more like Starbucks, where Starbucks kind of like manages everything, as opposed to a franchise where it's kind of just managed exclusively by this external team.
So, I mean, a lot of guys looking at this and they're like, well, I want to start a business, but there's a lot of moving parts. I'm not sure if I have the financial resources or just if I'm emotionally ready to kind of dive right in. What kind of advice would you give people that want to start something?
Who here in the audience is a business owner or wants to start a business? Okay, cool, wow, that's like most of the audience. Well, first of all, I think that most people should not even consider being an entrepreneur because it's really challenging, and it's also a lot of luck. But I think that for those people that are taking the risk, that's awesome, kudos. It definitely is a huge risk. A lot of people want to build what Tyler calls a freedom business. He actually helped teach somebody in order to create what he called freedom business, where there's small businesses that could help you make a couple of $1,000s a year while you travel. At the same time, I believe a better way to do that is to actually work for a company, get a great experience, build great business skills, be an asset to a company that could fund you so that you could actually travel around in a much higher quality of life way, in a way that can do it. Those people who want to build like real businesses that are actually managing real significant number of people in terms of payroll. And when I say real, I mean like you have 10 or more people whose lives and their livelihoods depend on you full time. Now, those are totally different aspects of building a business. In terms of what we had to do, a lot of that had to do with the fact that we pretty much put everything into the leadership. And we knew that the leadership, which is Tyler, myself, and then a few of the instructors that we're working with at the time, knowing that these key leadership people that were with us from the very beginning, our RSD instructors that were here from the very beginning, these are the people that I believed in. These are the people I still believe in today. So the reason why our business is successful today is because the RSD instructors that have been with us since the beginning are people who I knew were very talented. And I put it in my all. I put in every dollar I had and every ounce of my credit card to build this company so that we could have a situation where we would grow. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And the sacrifices you have to make will often bury you. So if you look at the statistics, 9 out of 10 businesses go out of business within 3 years. And if you look at it even on a deeper level, after 5 years, 99% of companies will go out of business. And that's why I don't recommend most people to do that, because I don't want to train those people that aren't willing to sacrifice fully. And when people think they're going to sacrifice, they don't know, because the pain that you have to suffer in your personal life and business life is pretty extreme a lot of the time. You'll get a lot of awesome highs. I've had years where my life was amazing. My wife and I were traveling around the world, educating ourselves, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, each of us, just learning about business and how to build a business. I've gone through 2 MBA programs. I'm now studying law at Harvard. I'm planning to do a Juris Doctorate in the West Coast, possibly at Stanford. I got to have the convenience of going through a lot of formal education. Also building a mastermind of networks of entrepreneurs and businessmen, YouTube celebrities, and also people that are just really awesome RSD people internally, because we've brought in people that got engulfed in the culture. And when they're trained by Tyler's kind of like Allah. He's like the light that shines on you. He's the guy who inspires you and takes you to the next level. A lot of people refer to him as Jesus. There's a bunch of articles called In Tyler We Trust, because he just is always evolving. He's probably one of the most brilliant businessmen I've met. I mean, he has an undergraduate bachelor's degree from a top school. It's kind of like an Ivy League school of Canada called Queen's. He got a philosophy degree. And originally he was going to become an attorney, get a law degree in that. But instead, he just evolved, because you learn much more in the field in terms of business than you do through formal educational structures. Tyler wants to get some more executive education, possibly from like a West Coast school like USC in the future, or network with more business leaders. But it's hard to have that time. But we're really lucky that we have Tyler, because he's been hustling as a business person since the very beginning. I myself has always had that work ethic. It was a combination of ambition and mass amounts of work, where you were working 100-hour weeks. Then you get to the point where after 3 to 5 years, you're working like 40 to 60-hour weeks. And then you could have like a normal life. But at the same time, there's been also these peaks in my life, especially recently, where the amount of work and crap I have to deal with is pretty extreme. You know, whether it's like health issues in my family, or whether it's some kind of a crazy attack, or whether it's trying to keep the people that I believe are the most important leaders and people in my life and my business happy. That's a massive amount of stress. And also the financial aspect, that's huge, because I myself have had to leverage myself so many times to the extreme. And a lot of people not only don't have the ability to suffer and feel that pain and survive, but it's also they don't have the resources or the network or know how to do that. We have a guy who's a business strategy guy. He's the owner of a large magazine and also massively successful at an investment bank in Beverly Hills. He's my strategy mentor. And he wrote a book after interviewing tens of thousands of professors on a theory. I don't necessarily believe in this theory, but I thought it was kind of a cool theory. He believes that life is fair. He believes that when you die, the amount of pain and suffering that you feel in life is something that will be balanced out by equal amounts of pleasure. So if somebody has like a very calm life, in theory, because it's just a theory. Like say you're a Buddhist monk, you have a really calm life, calm amounts. There won't be like extreme levels of pain or pleasure. But if you have like an entrepreneurial job where I might have massive extreme amounts of pleasure, where I might go on these exotic trips to Bora Bora or Bali and rent out resorts and hang out with like a bunch of really powerful people doing crazy things. And I'll film them and share a lot of that on my YouTube channel sometimes. But at the same time, also have massive amounts of pain points. Now in theory, what I like about this is that it kind of gives you hope. It kind of gives you the light at the end of the tunnel. Because when you feel a lot of pressure against you, knowing that there might be an outlook for hope is what keeps me going. I know during the recession, it took us 6 months to get out of this point. I was at the verge of tears every day, and I also wanted to motivate my staff. So during that time, every single month, not only was I running the company, doing the free tours, also every month showing that you can also work out. I was doing long distance endurance training. So I was doing my first month of my tour, I did an Ironman in Australia. Then I did a marathon with Tony Hsieh in Las Vegas. Then I did a half marathon somewhere else. And I was getting in good shape. I need to lose a good amount of weight now and get back into things. So right now I've been playing golf. It's definitely not as hardcore in terms of networking. I mean, no, it's more hardcore in terms of networking, but definitely not as hardcore in terms of getting yourself in shape. So you might see my YouTube channel interviews with guys like Brandon Carter, or guys like Greg O'Gallagher, guys who are really awesome health and fitness guys, because only if you have health are you able to actually survive and live and push things forward. I mean, I've already had many shockers. I've had times, multiple times, when I've been diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, they've been proven wrong so far. But I've also created succession plans, told my family that I was going to go out of it. I wasn't going to survive. And all these little things happen all the time. I also might deal with crazy people that have attacked me personally or in the business world. Crazy things that are kind of hidden behind the scenes that you might not expect. Like during the social justice warrior attacks, we had people that were stalking people in our company, threatening our families. And they didn't understand that it was just a huge misunderstanding. I had everything from Homeland Security come to my house because people were threatening me with fake anthrax attacks. And on the other hand, we also had to get support from M&M's manager. I rented M&M's crib in Vegas, and I hid out there. I rented a mansion in the Hollywood Hills for Owen to hide out there, and he had security behind gates. Now we don't have to do that. I could go out there and have a public face, a persona, because we cleared away a lot of that just by that one interview we did on CNN. But then we also still have people who don't see that in one interview, and we're still learning how to be better at public relations, how to be better at all these different aspects of our business. But as we get better and better, a lot of the aspects of our business get stronger. And it's amazing. So I believe that every single little goal that Owen has kind of like set as a suspense, Nick, we need to get this done within 1 year. We've successfully done that. And that allowed us to take things to the next level. A lot of the innovation has to do with the things that I'll come up with also business-wise. A lot of the infrastructure, the corporate structures are things that I've built. So I'll train a lot of instructors how to build these little mini infrastructures. We did that here in Vegas Immersion. Now it's grown to this massive business. Vegas Immersion in and of itself will likely generate within the year over $1 million. And that's pretty amazing. because that's kind of like the line that people will cross before they're allowed into all sorts of mastermind groups like the Entrepreneurs Organization and other groups where you can network with all sorts of other entrepreneurs that are making over $1 million a year.
So, I mean, in terms of handling all these situations, who can you name that's been a huge influence in terms of how you run the company?
My father has been a huge influence on me because he installed in me this really hard work ethic. He installed a work ethic where I was in school and he would stay up all night forcing me to study just to make sure that I would get an A. He also was a professor before he became a successful business person. So I'd take computer science classes of his since I was 12, and he would make me retake the test until I could get an A in it. And that hard work ethic was something that was also something that was a challenge every day at dinner time. If I got too much food on my plate, my dad would look at my plate and said, "Your eyes are bigger than your stomach. What are you doing here?" And my mom would say, "Prove your dad wrong." They're kind of like a tag team. And that mindset that I always had, that everyone would tell me, you can't do this, you can't do that, I would always believe that anything is possible. But that mindset, I take that into the business world, where I believe that literally anything is possible. That you could think outside the box and accomplish anything. There's been times where I've had people say that this is going to die, this family member is going to die, this project's going to die, you're going to die, and I never believed it. So I'd do my own research, and I'd find solutions. I'd talk to second opinions. I'd think outside the box. Find ways to make RSD grow, find a way to help my family so that they get the treatment they need to survive. I've done it with my pets, my business, everything. And whenever I hear that there's something that's in my way, I'll preach to everyone, there's always a way if you think outside the box. That's why I always preach, you'll never give up. You should never ever give up, because there's always a way when you think outside the box to accomplish anything. I also believe this because I also was kind of brainwashed by misunderstanding something when I was a kid. The US Constitution says that all men are created equal. So I looked at that, and I was always thinking, well, that must mean that all these super powerful people on the planet, they're the same as me. All these people that are doing awesome things in athletics, it must be just because they focused their time, and it's not an issue of genetics, it's not an issue of resources. It just is an issue is, are you willing to work hard enough to accomplish that goal? Now I believe that there is an aspect of genetics that can help you, as opposed to pretty much my entire childhood, literally until after I was an adult. I believe your entire life was based on your circumstances and how you reacted to circumstances in order to create who you are. I still believe more circumstance than genetics will play in pretty much every aspect of every person's life in terms of what they get, in terms of what they want to get, and if they get what they want to get.
And in terms of your social connection, I mean, a lot of people know you have a vast amount of connections, and your social networking skills are amazing. A lot of people would ask, how do you grow these connections without neglecting others?
I used to, every day, when I was living in Los Angeles, have this weird principle. It was like the yes man principle, where if anyone invited me to anything, I'd always say yes to everything. And I did this because I really wanted to develop an awesome soul circle when I was in Los Angeles. And I lived there for a good 8 years. And it was something that I developed because most of my childhood, I didn't really have a soul circle. I just had classmates from school, and I might hang out with them sporadically or get involved with athletics. But when I got into college, I started throwing epic parties. Like every month, I do some crazy things, like renting out yacht clubs, renting out separate clubs, inviting celebrity guests, contacting everyone who was in the New York office of Playboy and trying to get them to throw parties with me in the Big Ten city schools of the University of Wisconsin, etc. And then the university I was going to was University of Wisconsin, and I ended up making them the #1 party school that year through Playboy. Not just me, but it's also the whole culture. But I was able to contribute to that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was always actively engaging. I was always actively researching how I could get involved with organizations. And after I got involved with organizations, started building contacts, whether it's through fraternities or just meeting a lot of friends, just developing strong connections with people. First, I tried to do it like a shotgun approach, where I was just trying to get as many people into my network as possible. Then I started going more sniper and just trying to develop my relationships with those people that were more on that success path, had a similar mindset to that hard work ethic, that hustler mentality, and growing from there. So now that I have that, I think a lot of it in terms of keeping that, maintaining that, is I'll invite people to do interviews with me in terms of my YouTube channel. Before that, I invite them to dinner parties, or invite them to go to mastermind groups I organize socially. For example, here in Vegas, I rented out a bunch of mini castles in the outskirts of Vegas, where I reach out to some of my friends, like my friend Tony Shea. He owns 60% of downtown Vegas and has an awesome crib, and I invite everyone to come down that I knew who were really powerful individuals in my soul circle and just network with them. And then people would really appreciate these opportunities. They would do the same thing for parties. I used to have parties at the Playboy Mansion or through Xeni when I was in the membership advisory board. I was organizing these parties and getting all these girls and guys in movie studios every single week, or mansions in Hollywood Hills. And even if I was just doing something casually, like we're going to lunch, I'd invite 5 to 10 people to have lunch with me last minute. And if 1 or 2 of those people showed up, I considered it great, because I didn't like the concept of eating alone. I know that some guy named Keith Ferrazzi wrote a book called Never Eat Alone. I haven't read that book, but I love that principle, because that principle allows you to keep that networking going.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people also love giving business advice, and there's a lot of business advice out there. What is the most common, or what is one advice that you hear that you think is bullshit?
I think it's bullshit. Well, I think that the biggest thing that I hear a lot is usually about the financials of people that have a game plan to create a company. Because I get a lot of pitches. Like for some reason, I'm not even an investor in any other company other than my own. When I start hearing the word billions, that's when I get this as red flag, where people will talk about the next tech company they're going to create. And they said, oh yeah, this is going to be $1 billion idea. That's when I think it's bullshit, right? Immediately. And I hear that all the time.
And in terms of, I guess, not your own personal advice, but somebody else's advice that it's influenced you a lot?
So in terms of like bad business advice that I've heard, I think most of the bad business advice that I've heard is about entrepreneurship. Because a lot of people will say things like everyone should become an entrepreneur because then you don't have to work for somebody else. And I think that's kind of stupid, because when you are an entrepreneur, you're working for even more people. You're working for your clients, you're working for all sorts of other people, and how you operate, how you run your business is dictated by your customers and not just dictated by the small group of people. I also think that whether you're working for somebody else or whether you're an entrepreneur, the same business skills that you will learn apply, because you need to be entrepreneurial. Not necessarily an entrepreneur, but always thinking outside the box. My dream job when I was a kid was to become an investment banker, because I was going to a boarding school outside New York City, and those are the guys who were making the most amount of money. And those are the guys who are living this amazing lifestyle. There's like glamorous, there's traveling and what have you. We had that with an RSD. But at the same time, I always say that my job is both the best job I've ever had and also the worst job I've ever had, because I have to deal with the ability to scale up and create with awesome ideas, and they'll actually have a strong chance of being implemented, which is great. I love creating ideas that actually happen, actually take place. But at the same time, I also have to deal with a lot more pressures, a lot more responsibilities. Yet at the same time, I honor that. I think it's great, because if I don't do it, I don't know anyone else who would. If I found somebody else who would have taken a lot of these responsibilities away from me, I would clearly be more interested in delegating a lot of that.
So a lot of people also know that the RSD instructors in particular have a huge amount of creative flexibility in terms of their content. Was this something that was pretty much from the beginning of the company, or was that an idea that got kind of implemented later in terms of how much freedom they have?
Well, we trusted our guys in the very beginning. That's why they're RSD instructors. The line to get into the RSD instructor program is huge. It's guys who have to be chosen specifically by instructors, vouch for them, and then chosen by Tyler. And then they have to survive a very long instructor training program. And if they could do that, we'll trust them to create the content. If they've gone through the vouch of Tyler, then those are people that have survived and gone through a massive training program. Because he'll take guys out in the field and critique every aspect of who they are. And then if they could do that and also have the work ethic, do that, create products, create content, manage a brand, also manage a team, then those are people that we'll trust with creating the product. If you come to the summit, I have no idea what people are going to talk about. I just know it's going to be awesome.
And so in terms of your own personal life, I know you've taken up golf recently, relatively recently, but how do you balance work and play? Well,
in terms of my life, there's one thing I have to do every week in terms of my personal life, which is a weekly date night. I feel like it's a healthy thing that I do with my wife every week. In terms of business, there's meetings that I've set up throughout the week at certain times of the day, and certain days of the week, every single week, all year round. And that kind of keeps me in track. Also, by having a good executive assistant, Lisa helps keep me in track in terms of letting me know if things are going on. And a lot of it also has to do with me talking to Tyler. We talk all the time, almost every day of the week, and that helps a lot. If we weren't, like back in the day, we were maybe meeting up in person for a few days every month. A lot of miscommunications. If you don't meet up with the people that are most important in terms of your executive team and meet up on a frequent basis, have that strong communication, you're definitely going to have misinterpretations, and those clarity of expectations is probably the most important thing.
In terms of the company, essentially, we don't have necessarily a central office location. Different instructor teams might have a studio to work from. What are the major challenges in terms of having people most of the time all over the world?
I think that the biggest thing is making sure that you have people that are going to work and get the job done. And so if they work from anywhere, that's fine with me. They could do that. We built that company because we knew that they didn't have to be in a certain place. Now in Vegas, they have to be in Vegas because they're coaching. They're also doing video editing. They're doing video production. And the same thing is going on in Los Angeles, and why we have remote teams traveling around the world with instructors, because they're doing these things. And only by getting to know the people and traveling with them or spending a lot of time with them are you going to build that trust. And I think that's the most important part, because you could have guys that are doing an awesome job, but if you're not seeing what the results are right in front of you every day or seeing how hard they're working, you won't truly understand what they're doing. You have to understand that. Tyler always will say to instructors or to all the different staff that he wants to have more of their time with them in Los Angeles because of that specific reason.
So right now I guess we can open up to some questions.
So what we're going to do is we'll have you raise your hands. Vess is going to go around the room. We're going to have him pass around the mic. You're going to ask the question, and I'll try to repeat the question.
You mentioned organizations that you try to be involved in. What types of organizations?
So basically, the question here is, what organizations would you vet or vouch for? So I mean, it really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, in terms of me, when I first got into Hollywood, the organizations that I cared about were solely about how to pick up more girls. So what I was doing is I got involved with Xeni, I got involved with the Karma Foundation, I got involved with Carbon. These are clubs that are social clubs organizing private parties where they have like a 3 to 6 to girl to guy ratio, where I could network with other people that could afford to and were dedicated to going out and networking with these people in terms of picking up girls. And getting involved in a fraternity when I was in college, that helped a lot. If you're interested in getting involved with business, that's great. There's a lot of great business clubs out there, like Vistage, there's Entrepreneurs Organization, there's mastermind groups, but I think that the things that got me most interested were organizations that were involving my hobbies, like throughout my college career. And even before I was in college, and even after I was in college, I still go to student organizations, where it's like ballroom dancing, going to skydiving, going to things that are my passions, because when I developed friendships or relationships with people that have the same passions as me, even if it's not necessarily people that are like CEOs of companies, there's people that I was able to build relationships, like real relationships. Now I'll go to video game conventions and video game organizations and get involved with teams, and I'll sponsor some of them because these are passions. But I'll meet those people that are the most successful people, the people who are the hardest working ethic, people who are really good at what they're doing, and I want to learn from them because those are my hobbies and passions. And the thing is, those people usually network and introduce me to other people. The guy named Harvey McKay, and he said that the average person probably knows really well about 200 people. So if you know 200 people, and each of those 200 people know 200 people, you have access to potentially a network, like a LinkedIn network, but a real life version of 40,000 people, which is pretty awesome. You just got to be able to build that network. A lot of people, though, won't maintain those friendships. A lot of people will just have friendships that are either just casual business relationships or what have you. So I want to go deep as I can with those people that I believe have the biggest amount of loyalty, trust, and a positive attitude. And that's actually the only 3 qualities you look for within RSD, because I believe you can train pretty much anyone on anything if you have those 3 things.
Have you all been offering the lifetime, summit pass or whatever you want to call it? Is that a recent thing or not? Because to me it sounds like initially it's not monetizing something you could be taking advantage of, but I was wondering what the long-term goal is if you're not monetizing that on the lifetime.
Well, if you look at what we've done here for Summit, for example, if you've taken an RSD bootcamp, if you've been involved with Vegas Immersion, or if you bought a lifetime pass for Summit, then you get a lifetime pass to not just the Vegas Summit, but every 6 months now you have the Miami Summit. And yeah, you're right. There is a large amount of money that we'll invest into these events, and we'll probably lose tens of thousands of dollars every one of these events if you look at just the event itself. But it's a long play, because if you look at the value that we're giving here, we're opening your eyes up to all sorts of other aspects of other instructors. And in the long run, you'll have a situation where this program gets bigger. It makes cooler videos that we could post on YouTube. It also allows us to have all of our staff get together and share content. So when we created this summit, the summit originally wasn't a lifetime pass thing. It was mostly focused on creating an event that could make money. But then it turned into an event where you have all of our RSD instructors and also all of our business administration staff. And you might not see me much of the event nowadays because a lot of the times I'm doing in meetings, and a lot of time Tyler's in meetings with instructors every night, doing dinner parties, doing events, talking about mission and vision. Or I might be meeting up with staff and maybe making videos, and so our instructors are making cross-promotional videos because they're also doing product launches. And that's where we kind of like make the money in the long term. A lot of it also is kind of based on the same premise for the reason why we created a free tour. Because when you create the free tour, you might have 10, 20, 40% of the audience buy other programs. And that allows us to fund events like the summit. And as they get bigger, that's exactly what we rely on. We rely on the fact that students will come to these events where we invested a ton of money, and they'll buy programs in the back of the room, because we sell programs for every instructor in the back of the room. And if people buy them, that allows us to continue to sustain this business model. And that's what the basis of what Tyler's vision was in terms of creating the summit as a lifetime pass. It's also why we also created the hot seat as a lifetime pass. We created a hot seat, not a lifetime pass, a 1-year pass. You buy a hot seat from a particular instructor, you can go to that instructor's hot seat for 1 full year, because it allows them to also do 2 things. 1, it helps us. 2, it helps them. By you going to these events again and again, you'll learn new things every single time. This summit, how it is now, is 10 times different than when it was at the Venetian just a couple years ago. As a result, you'll see all the coolest, newest innovations, what's going on in RSD behind the scenes with the RSD instructors in terms of innovations. And also you get to build friendships, lifetime friendships. A lot of the people here are new guys this year. And a lot of people here that are not new guys, they might still be here, but they're going out partying every night with everybody. They might not be going to every single seminar, every single summit event. That's why we have the phone app, so people who are interested in particular guys, they can see that. So I hope to see you guys at a lot of future summits, both in Vegas and Miami.
You're hosting a dinner party and you can invite 3 people, business people that you've never met. Who do you invite?
It's a good question. You know, the 3 people that I haven't met that I'd love to meet, one of them it would be Elon Musk. I know his brother, and pretty much all the PayPal founders that created that company with Elon Musk are clients of ours, except for Peter Thiel because he's gay. But other than that, all the straight guys, they were hitting the field. They were actually at our first ever San Francisco program. I love Elon Musk because I love Tesla. And I also love space. When I was in college, I was involved with the project called the Reduced Gravity Program through NASA, where we did experiments on a plane called the Vomit Comet, where you go to 60,000 feet and dive to 20,000 feet, and during those 30 seconds of zero gravity, you're able to do experiments. One of the years I led a team, and we created this robot that could grab tools potentially for astronauts in the International Space Station. Next year we did this thing where we created this process where we can make aerogel, which is this thing that's almost invisible, super lightweight, light as a feather, and also could withstand bullets and flames. And then my business partner at the time, because we led this team together in the second year of my participation in the program, he now created a corporation. I'll probably do an interview with him because he also is now the flight director for the Zero G Corporation, which actually organizes these parabola flights in the KC-135 now that the reduced gravity program's out of business. But other than that, I would love to meet business people that have kind of like a unique kind of like aspect of their business in terms of like what I do. So when I look at like what we do events. So one of the people I like to meet, I don't even know who he is, would be like the founder of TED, because I think TED's really cool. I met the founder of the Summit series, which is Elliot Bisnow, and he has a bunch of other guys. I believe that's like the newer, hipper version of TED. But TED was kind of like the innovation, the first kind of like event that was of that kind of scale, and he organized it from a very high level. I'd like to talk to him about why he created that business model and how he was able to do that. The other guy I'd love to meet, and I don't even know his name also, is a guy who created this mastermind group in a community. It's an elite community. I think it's called Yellowstone. And what it is a bunch of like mansions that people would buy, and they would hang out at this country club and network together. And my friends at the Summit Series also know this guy very well, so I'd love to potentially get an invite to meet that guy, because they kind of took that to the next level, and instead they bought a mountain for $50 million, and they organize events at that place instead, where they have networking and dinner parties and what have you, with everyone from like Richard Branson to Mark Zuckerberg to Tony Hsieh to all the powerful people that I've met through being in the Summit Series since its first year. And we got into that because Tyler, he had a blog back in the day. It was a WordPress blog, and so a lot of people were following his blog, including the founders of the Summit Series. And then we started creating a situation where we started training their staff and going to their events. And they've been a huge inspiration to show me what's possible in terms of networking and business building. What he said was, earlier I mentioned that some people are creating what Tyler coined a freedom business. And then he got one of our former instructors who, talked to him, and he created like a freedom business coaching company. The idea of a freedom business is a business that's supposed to generate just like $2,000 or $3,000 a month so you could like live your own life. And I said, I didn't really like that idea compared to creating either your own business or working for someone else, because you can build a lot more resources and do something on a much larger scale. And I believe that very firmly. I think it's cool to develop a freedom business. And I believe a lot of people in this room probably have done that. And I think that's awesome. I just think that if you're gonna take things to the next level, in order to build like a real business that has what I framed as 10 or more people, it requires you to also take a lot of freedoms away from you, a lot of sacrifice, where you're building an automated system or a system that is built to run, and it's not just like a tech company, it's a business that will continually grow and has like a future, as opposed to being a lifestyle business. Originally, RSD was built as a lifestyle business, so even more important than calling it, say, like a freedom business, would be like a lifestyle business, because some lifestyle businesses generate a lot more than that. They'll generate millions sometimes. And RSD was generally, in the beginning, a lifestyle business just so we could continue to pick up girls and have fun. But I like the concept of the idea of building a business that is there to grow, reach a lot of people, and actually have a mission and vision that Tyler had in the very beginning, which is to try to make high quality, high powerful content that's supposed to inspire and change the world kind of thing. And you could do that as not just like a one-man company or like a small team, but as like a global team. The reason why Tyler is not like a lifestyle business is because he believes, and I believe as well, by having a team of some of the most intellectually innovating and evolving people as our RSD instructors, and having him kind of lead that path, and having like an executive business team that also is extremely talented, that allows us to grow what we call real growing powerful business. And in and of itself, it's a person. It requires a lot of work ethic. So a lot of time, instead of like the original lifestyle purpose, we're just traveling around the world having fun. We're working our ass off as hustlers. It's like what you'll see is like Gary Vee. He'll make videos, and it's Christmas. Talk about how everyone's at home enjoying eggnog, and he's at his office making things hustle. We're not that hardcore, all this. Some of us are, but it's kind of cool to have like a situation where you're building a business, as opposed to a lifestyle business. I think it's also cool when you have a job that as you contribute to a purpose that's going to impact the world in a very large way. Because like if Tyler was just a one-man guy, he probably wouldn't have this large room of all you people in front of him in of itself all over the world. He might have it now and then, but he'd be teaching a lot less programs. And so it's cool to leverage the power of a mastermind group to build this business in a much more powerful way. And that's why we are Real Social Dynamics as opposed to Tyler Dynamics. Good? All right, thanks guys. I got to catch a flight. We're going to break up the panel.